Hello and welcome to Fintech Insider Insights. I'm Ross Gallagher, Director at 11FS Ventures. In today's episodes, we're delving into holistic financial well-being. So what does that mean, I hear you ask? Well, we are going to be answering exactly that while looking at the value add for customers within the ecosystem of one brand, how the brands can cultivate that customer stickiness and retention to keep them within the brand's umbrella, while offering them new products and services to improve their financial health and management. We also want to look at the balance between guidance and advice and how to bake this into propositions and how brands can tread the line between the two while still offering value to customers. We'll discuss all of this and more in today's show. But first, a few brief messages, so please don't go anywhere.
Looking to take your customer journeys to the next level and benchmark your products against the best in financial services? Well, look no further than 11FS Pulse. Home to over 5,700 user journeys covering everything from onboarding to crypto. It features analysis of global brands like Nubank, Revolut, and Robinhood. It's already tried and trusted by big names like Monzo, whose co-founder Jonas said their research phase took just 1/10 of the time it normally would, thanks to 11FS Pulse. Join Monzo and hundreds of other brands taking their UX game to the next level by booking a demo today at 11fspulse.com/demo. That's 11fspulse.com/demo.
Hello and welcome
LFG people
to Fintech Insider,
Blockchain Insider,
11FS Spotlight,
11FS Explores,
Open Mic Night,
After Dark.
Through our podcasts, videos, newsletters, and live events, we have a direct line to a truly global fintech community. So if you're looking to sponsor and collaborate on content that connects with everybody from fintech beginners to the biggest VCs, then chat to our team at sponsors@11fs.com or visit 11fs.com to find out more.
Long live the community.
As always, I'm joined by some outstanding guests who can shed some light on this question. First off, it's great to be joined by Nirmalan, Head of Digital Transformation at NatWest Group. Niro, thanks for being here. Maybe you can just give our listeners a quick overview of you and your role at NatWest.
Thanks very much for having me, Ross. This is my kind of go-to podcast when I go for a run, so it's going to be a bit strange hearing myself when I run, but there you go. So I head up digital transformation for the NatWest Group. So the retail bank within the NatWest Group is a team that I lead. It's formed of NatWest, Royal Bank, and Ulster Bank, and part of my role is to lead the proposition and experience design team that design the stuff for our digital channels. So I've been with the NatWest Group for nearly 8 years now, and we're driven by a very strong purpose to help our kind of people, families, and businesses thrive. And one of the ways we do that is by having financial well-being at the core of our kind of product and proposition development. So looking forward to the conversation.
Love that, Niro. It's great to have you. And I know obviously it's a topic that sort of you're immersed in. So thank you for coming on to share your insights as well. And at least we're not making you run while we record. So, at least that's something. All right, we also have a Fintech Insider debut for Audrey Zada, Director of Product Communications for Lemonade. Audrey, welcome to the show. Maybe you can just remind our listeners about Lemonade and a little bit about yourself as well.
Sure, thanks so much for having me. Lemonade is an insurance company. We are live across the United States and in several countries in Europe. We offer several different kinds of insurance products. We are direct to consumer for the most part. Everything is super digital, so everything is really easy to use, and we try to make things really easy to understand. As Director of Product Communications, my job is to sort of make sure that from the first ad you see to buying your policy to filing a claim if you have the bad luck and need to do so, that Lemonade looks and feels the same across product lines, across different moments of the experience, whether you're on the app or speaking to someone from our support team. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we're so excited to have you. I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So thanks again for jumping on, Audrey. And finally, it's yet another debut on Fintech Insider for Sujata Bhatia, COO at Monzo Bank. Sujata, Monzo really needs no introduction, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and the things that you've worked on at Monzo.
Hi, it's nice to meet you all. Well, we have 8 million customers. We have quite a few more to go. So I would say for those of you that don't know, Monzo is the bank that lives on your phone. And our mission is to make money work for everyone. And our plan is to become the financial control center that brings your entire financial life together. It just helps you make all the right decisions to improve your financial health, to enable your life goals and overall well-being. So this topic is very topical for us. I've been here just over 3 years, and I lead customer operations, marketing, design, user research, and people. And before that, I had about 16 years at another financial services company, American Express.
Awesome. Well, look, again, thanks again for jumping on. I think it's a great panel with some sort of diverse perspectives, diverse backgrounds. So I'm really looking forward to jumping in and discussing our topics. So yeah, look, let's do just that, and maybe let's start with a little sort of round the virtual room. Let's have a little chat about, holistic well-being. It all sounds great. Like, surely we should all have that. But I guess, what does it mean, right? What does it mean in your specific context, within your sort of day-to-day, within the organization? Maybe, Niro, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of holistic financial well-being, it's really understanding what the customer's kind of financial goals are, and how do we as a bank help support the customer with meeting those financial well-being needs. I think part of that is going beyond products and services and really building that relationship up with our customers. I think when we go back to the years of yesteryears in terms of customers walking into a branch, one of the key things from that experience is it's not just about customers going in there to deposit money. It's also about the relationship that customers have with the branch staff, and then feeling that the branch staff really understand them. So I guess in a digital world, the key focus for us is, how do we get to that level of trust and relationship that we build with our customers? So for us, a key way of doing that is through financial well-being and really understanding the needs.
I think you've summed that up really, really well. I think for me, it feels like there's often been almost like a service gap, right, between sort of traditional financial products and features and then the things that customers are actually trying to get done in their life. So for me, I suppose a lot of what we're going to talk about today is sort of bridging that gap, really. Audrey, what do you think? I guess some of that, I can see you nodding, I guess some of that resonated.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I'll add is that I think holistic financial well-being doesn't just have to do with, accumulating wealth and managing debt, but it's really about feeling secure and being in a position of control and really being able to make good choices for yourself. So at Lemonade, we're talking about insurance, and financial well-being really has to do with something that people usually have to get, something that's either required by them, for them by law or by a landlord. And so people don't always feel like they're choosing it for themselves, but it's something that does make life a lot easier and really sets you up to be in control. So I think a lot of it has to do with knowing what you have, understanding what you need, and being in a position to make those choices so that as your life changes over time, you can make more great choices for yourself and sort of grow with your own opportunities.
That is an incredibly interesting lens, because I think insurance isn't necessarily, like you said, something that people are thinking about on a sort of ongoing basis. I think as well, it's not necessarily something that you associate with positive experiences, right? Often when you're interacting with your insurance brand, it's because something bad has happened, right? And you if you have that cover in place, then great. But I think there's something as well around, how do you help customers make the best decisions for them for a product like insurance, but equally, pensions, etc. Like, how do you know if you're putting enough aside? How do you know when you're going to be able to retire comfortably? And for me, I think there's definitely something in building people's confidence. I think you said it. You said helping people make the right decisions, do the right things for them in a financial services context. And I feel like that's definitely something that's typically been lacking. Sujata, what do you think?
I agree with everything that's been said, and insurance is an interesting category of money that Audrey talked about. But fundamentally, there's 3 things that change people's lives. It's education, healthcare, and money. So it's just one of those universal categories that's incredibly personal, and it touches everything in your life outside of your your day-to-day financial management. That's actually still kind of a relatively narrow definition. I think you asked what financial well-being is, and I think that's about taking the anxiety and pressures away that money creates. For most people, this is an anxious thing. And whether that's helping you manage your impulsive spending behavior or taking away strains in relationships that can be caused by money or taking away a barrier to progress and achieving your life goals, really well-being is about turning that all on its head. So moving away from working for money, but making your money work for you is what I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if I stick with that point around anxiety, and I think we mentioned it before, sort of confidence, I feel like nobody likes to do the things that we feel like we're not good at, right? Like it makes us feel bad. We tend to procrastinate. And I think a lot of people feel like they're not very good with money. And so I suppose that becomes quite a vicious cycle. Niro, how do you start to think about breaking that cycle essentially?
I think so. Obviously, training and raising financial awareness and so on. But I think that there's a very important point around. It's very, very difficult to change people's habits, and one of the best things about digital is the ability for us to try to automate a lot of things for customers. So how do we even take that thinking away from them, and it just happens in the background? There's something around automation that can play a huge part in financial well-being. So that's something that we need to kind of really hone in on and look at what kind of new propositions that we can develop in that space. In terms of those training and that awareness, but there is gamification that can also play a bigger part in this. So simple things like to help customers save, for example, can we gamify that experience for them so for example, if you haven't spent that money on that coffee, can you just automatically just click on a button and it gets added to your savings? So how do we gamify stuff? How do we automate stuff to really help change that habit in a more subtle way for customers? There's something around that which would be good to kind of drill a bit more deeper into.
No, I completely agree. And I think actually when you think about, and I suppose actually this goes back to what we were talking about around that sort of service gap for me. I think some of the sort of products and features that we're all very familiar with in a financial services context are good at some bits of helping you manage your finances. Like we get paid and then we set up all of our recurring commitments to go out through direct debits or standing orders, so we can automate to a point. But actually it's everything that goes beyond that. It's how do you manage the discretionary portion of your spend? It's actually how do you get a sense for where you stand holistically across all of your accounts at any point in a month? How do you get to the end of the month? That I feel like we start to fall short a little bit. And actually, I think people have had to develop this whole series of manual hacks and workarounds, whether it's keeping track of everything in a notebook or a spreadsheet or whatever people have. I saw an example recently. It's around that time of year, isn't it, where first year university students are getting ready to leave home and go and live away from home for the first time. And I saw that IKEA had created a list of all of the sort of basic items that you would need to leave home for the first time and be able to set up away from home. They had bundled it all together and then they had sold it as a single product with a reduced rate. I mean, it's kind of like, what's the financial services version of that for me, right? Like, where are we starting to add value over and above those sort of commodity products? I mean, Sujata, what do you think?
Yeah, you kind of have to also you have to own your relationship with money, right? The one size fits all list I think is really helpful when you're going off to uni, because everybody probably needs like a comforter and a laundry basket. But every person's individual relationship with money will be different, where their life stage is at, what their personal needs are, what their own goals are at. So I agree with the ambition. I think that the way you get there is a little bit different. And I think it's about how you help people build a muscle without feeling like they've been through a workout, right? That mix of Niro's a runner. So, to run the marathon, you build that up over time and at different stages. And so I think it's about being able to serve up contextually at the right life stage with a very low cognitive load, the small, simple decisions that can help somebody further their own personal goals at that stage. And you should never overestimate like the lack of appetite for cognitive load. People don't want to think about this category a lot. So winning is not getting them to engage deeply, because not everybody wants to be an expert on money, but they do want the simple decisions that are kind of no-brainers that will help them make progress on where they are in their lives. I mean, I think yesterday we launched an investments product. I don't know when this podcast is going out, so this might be months later, but, but we launched an investment product. And core to that product was this idea of like, let's take not everybody needs to be investing large sums right now in a fund, but building the muscle to build your investments over time is important. So like core to that product is you can invest as little as £1 from day one. We have lots of little education vignettes that you can consume in really bite-sized chunks over time as you get through the different stages of that product to help you get the information you need when you need it. So I think it's about helping people get on that journey and meeting them where they are.
I totally agree. I think this is something we see a lot at Lemonade. We meet most of our customers as renters, and we know that they're not going to stay renters forever. But, we work to educate them about what is a renter's policy, what are the different coverages, and a lot of overlap exists with the homeowner's policy, but we work really hard to give them an amazing experience and make it feel manageable, give them confidence around having an insurance policy so that when they finally get off their parents' car insurance, that they're going to come to Lemonade. When they have a pet, they're going to get pet insurance, and a family, they're going to get life insurance with us. And that, these pretty predictable life cycle events are really opportunities to grow as customers here at Lemonade. And so really being able to help them build confidence in the beginning is sort of how we look at the whole thing. I think another thing that you were talking about before kind of reminds me of our pet insurance, right? You're talking about taking accountability for your money and really being able to plan ahead. And I think pet insurance is pretty different from some of our other products because it is so, it's sort of like money that you're going to need to spend. We have so many more claims for our pet insurance than you would have in a car insurance product or a home product. So, a base policy is going to help cover things like accidents and illnesses that your pet might have. And then you can get add-ons for expensive things that you probably know you're going to pay for, like a dental cleaning, or if your vet has visit fees, or like the vaccines that they need to get on an annual basis. And basically what you're doing is you're making choices that make it really easy for you to take good care of your pet because you've kind of already financed them through your pet insurance policy. So I think it's, like you said, how we can grow with people over time, how we can give them confidence and also kind of make them feel like insurance experts in these lighter policies like a renter or a pet experience.
Well, what I love about what you said, Audrey, and you didn't say it out loud, but you implied it, is like core to that, to meeting them along that journey is building the trust. So that customer, that partner of yours being in a two-way dialogue and knowing that you understand them and that you're there to help them enable those goals. And that's how you have that permission to follow them on that journey.
And it's a great example almost of like the reverse of what we said earlier about often when you engage with insurance, it feels quite negative. I think what we're kind of saying is like, in this context, it actually makes you feel like a responsible adult and you're actually sort of like taking ownership and you're doing the right things. As someone who has a 2-year-old dog who likes to get into tricky situations, I can identify with all of everything that you just described, Audrey.
And in a digital space, you can make that really emotive. Like if you've used Monzo, when you get paid early, you draw that pay packet and you throw it into your pot and it explodes in confetti, and it's like a celebration with you to show like we get that this is an important moment for you and we understand why this is a moment to celebrate. And that's like another way to start to create that connection.
Completely agree. And Niro, actually, if I bring it back to because this is all really interesting context for me, specifically in relation to what you said about automation. And I think what we're sort of getting to is getting to that piece around automation actually probably needs to be gradual. I think to Zada and Audrey's point, you need to build that trust. You need to help them build the confidence. There's probably some smaller things early on that are quick wins that maybe lead to that building of trust and then having the permission to be able to automate a little bit more and a little bit more.
No, I agree. I think a very simple example of an automation that has gone down really well with our customers is roundups. So just helping customers get onto the kind of savings ladder in a very automated way. Roundups is a brilliant tool to help customers on that journey. And there are probably a number of other things that we can do on that front. But I think the key thing is when to what Sujata mentioned in terms of building that kind of muscle for customers, we need to really understand what stage customers are at and how do we present the right propositions for them at the right stage. And I think on that front, we need to utilize both kind of the implicit data as well as the explicit data that we have from the customers. So implicit data is things that we already know through transactional information and so on. But asking customers about how they feel about money, what are their goals, what are their ambitions, is just as important, because we shouldn't really be making decisions without consulting them. And I think that comes back to my initial point around how do we build that relationship and how do we build that kind of trust with customers.
Yeah, and how do you learn about that customer, right? And what are their needs, what are their wants, what are their goals? And I suppose just building that intelligence. And I suppose the interesting thing about intelligence, and it'd be good to get actually the panel's perspective on this. Maybe Audrey, I'll come to you, but it feels like the technology is moving in a way that we probably could start to move towards like real automation of people's sort of money flows. Like, I mean, if you think about it, we all typically get paid an income, whether that's a salary or a little bit of a side hustle, and then it just gets cut up probably 1,000 different ways, and some of it goes towards paying debt, and some of it goes to savings, and some of it goes, it's like our fund money and pension and all of that sort of stuff. And I think that's where you do start to see some of those manual workarounds, because at the moment, not a right lot of that is automated. I think we're moving, at least technologically, to a point where we can support some of that automation. But I think going back to what we said, it needs to be balanced with the customer's comfort, but essentially those permission levels, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think I let it go when you said IKEA's got this bundle deal, and I didn't talk about how we bundle insurance policies, but it's a lot harder for me to stay quiet about automation, because automation is actually a huge part of what we're focused on at Lemonade. I would say it's even a huge part of our internal culture. Actually, about 45% of our claims are handled end-to-end using automation without any human interaction at all. And our chatbot, AI Jim, who handles claims in the Lemonade app, handles like 98% of the first notices of loss that come in. So we're at least using automation to triage claims when a human needs to be involved. I think obviously, Lemonade has worked really hard on figuring out how you can use automation and chatbots to interact with customers in a way that feels really human and has a lot of empathy. I think one of the things that really draws people to Lemonade is being able to handle things on their own. So, when we think about automation, I wouldn't say that it's always at the expense of a positive human interaction or feeling supported and having empathy there. I think that's something that, since we launched in 2016, I think it's something Lemonade's been kind of known for. And I think where you really need to make sure that you've got the holistic thing working for you is the handover from an automated experience to human support, making sure that, whatever experience your customer is having, that handover is really seamless and that it feels like part of the same experience. And I think, we sort of build things at Lemonade in a way that people can kind of help themselves. So insurance isn't usually something people are very enthusiastic about. They probably want to come in, get what they need, and move on to the next item on their to-do list. But there are some people who do want to understand all of the details. And so we try to, create pockets where they can get more of that information, speak to a human if that's something that they prefer. I think all of us are talking about so many different kinds of customers. And so knowing that you have people who are going to be more enthusiastic about your service than others, really being able to give people the opportunity to strictly use automation and have it be sort of as quick of an experience as possible, but also making sure that, when you need a human touch, it's there. And you think about in insurance, we can have some really devastating claims that, we don't want to just have some kind of like Band-Aid ripped off experience. You really need people to walk you through and help you understand damages or risks. And I think just being able to learn from your customers, both in the interactions that you have with them when there's not a human involved, and then also like what their pain points are, can really kind of bridge the gap between those two things. And I think, this is a very exciting year for automation. I think there's so much more that we can do. And, Lemonade is certainly working hard to be at the forefront of how we bring new technologies into our customer experience. And I really do believe that that happens without being at the expense of a positive, empathetic, and human interaction.
Yeah, really well said. I think the panel was like furiously nodding when you were talking about how you pair good automation with good sort of human touch points. Sujata, really interested to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think automation is just a tool, right? Like it's a tool to either, and I agree with everything you said. So it's a valuable tool. It's a valuable tool to drive greater efficiency. It's a valuable tool to, manage the repeatable tasks. It's a valuable tool to reduce cognitive load when that turns up to a customer. That's all wonderful. But it's just a tool. Like what's underlying all of that is that kind of deep customer connection, which has to be in the DNA of any company that's working with customers. And so I think, Audrey, you give great examples about servicing. If I take the other counterpoint, it's it's also important in creation. So in Monzo, core to our DNA is we co-create with our customers. That's how the company was invented. We literally invited customers physically into our premises to help us build the product. We engage with them in, so many different customer touch points, from customer operations to social and community listening posts. We have a user research team that's at a scale that's significantly larger than most companies. So the human connection is the core of the DNA that you have to build and the way that you understand what those needs are and build those products and services. The tools like automation are just ways to achieve the outcomes that customers need, or as a company for you to be able to achieve them on their behalf. They're really important, but it's just another tool in your arsenal.
Nice. No, I completely agree. And actually, we've got a little bit more time to dig into that in the next section. So what I'll do is I'll take us to a quick break and we'll be back very shortly.
Commercial banking is changing faster than many banks can keep pace with. The innovation that's been unleashed by digital technologies and fintechs has transformed what commercial banking looks like today. In our brand new report, in association with Infosys Finacle, we explore the new generation of commercial banking, how value chains are being transformed, and what banks need to do to thrive in this new ecosystem. A must-read report for anyone in commercial banking. We combine our insights with those of 14 thought leaders from across financial services to break down the current situation, the catalysts of change, and what impact it will have on the industry. Don't miss out. Download your copy today at 11fs.com/commercial banking.
Okay, welcome back. Now, in this part of the show, we want to dig into balancing the human touch with truly digital solutions, as well as examining the difference between guidance and advice, and how hard it is for financial institutions to walk this line. Maybe, Niro, we'll start with you again. Why break the habit of a lifetime, or at least this show? So how much does digital transformation make sort of holistic planning and well-being easier?
So digital plays a massive part in bringing real-time tracking to customers. So customers can log into their mobile app, to online banking, whatever it is, track their investments, track their balances, set budgets quickly, have a clear action plan, set all of that up, and have it in the kind of palm of their hands wherever they go. I think digital gives them that level of control that they might not have through kind of analog means. That's one thing. The second thing it does is it enables us to kind of provide them with insights at the right time as well. So a really, really interesting insight that we recently provided to customers on their transactions was some of our customers have subscriptions to multiple streaming sites, for example, and they weren't even aware of it. It's just by kind of raising awareness of certain things that customers weren't even aware of, help customers save money because they didn't realize they even had 3 subscription services on their accounts. So giving those kind of personalized insights, having a real-time view of their transactions, all of that really helps build a customer's ability to manage their money much, much better than through analog means. In the past, and even now to a certain degree, we do financial health checks in our branches where customers come in, have a chat with our kind of teams in our branches, go through their finances and get recommendations, which is a great thing, which is amazing for the customer, because coming back to the initial point about building the relationship, it's brilliant. But that continuous kind of conversation with the customer can only happen when that analog meeting is then kind of augmented through digital means. So how do we then create a seamless path for those customers to kind of take away what the conversations that they've had, and then continuously see how they're progressing against those actions? So this comes back to the point Audrey mentioned around the digital and kind of human touch. How do we become more seamless between the analog world and the digital world so that we can help customers there?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And there is something in that, like being able to go to a branch, sit down with someone face to face when you're trying to do something like, build that understanding. What are the things that I can be doing better in terms of my own financial habits, behaviors, etc. I think your point is absolutely key then about how you seamlessly transition that experience across all of the different channels, and make it all feel joined up and consistent. Audrey, one thing that I did want to come back to you about, a point that you raised in the previous section, was around building that sort of that initial understanding of customers. How does Lemonade, as I suppose, how do you build that understanding of customers, and then how do you feed that into the product design process?
So I think, Lemonade was built with behavioral economics in our business model. And so I think we really tried to take a fresh look at how insurance works. I think, people don't always understand everything about insurance, and maybe they're not sure exactly what they need, but they know what their pain points are. And so I think when Lemonade first launched, it was pretty obvious to us what kinds of things we thought were missing from the experience. And so, one of the things that I want to make sure that I mention here, I think, we're sort of kind of defaulting that the human support experience is superior to an automated one. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's something we're really learning this year as technology is kind of creeping into giving us more data on, human error and what this can look like. I think one of the things that I really love about Lemonade is that I think these online experiences, they have beautiful interfaces, and they're designed to be really intuitive and friendly, and that creates a really great experience where people can really feel confident about the choices that they're making. I think beyond that, we've really built Lemonade in a way that we're able to collect data from every touch point that we have with customers. And so we can very quickly learn what kinds of things are not working, where are people not clear on what they're supposed to do or what they need. And then also because everything at Lemonade is digital, we're able to fix that really fast. And we also have, a lot of ongoing communication with our customers. We're doing user research all the time, speaking with customers, really trying to understand what's working for them, what kinds of things they're missing, and make sure that, Lemonade is a solution that really supports them in something that can be really, really overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean that's coming through loud and clear for sure. And it's interesting, just all of the data that you're getting, like sort of interaction data, but then still sort of engaging with customers on an ongoing basis and building that in as well. So Jessa, one of the things that you mentioned again in the previous section was about in the early days of Monzo, how you invited your sort of users in and actually feed into the product design process. And I know as you sort of built out from there, I've always been really open about your product roadmap and all that sort of stuff. But you mentioned, 8 million customers. How do you handle that at scale?
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked a lot in the early days and even now about Monzo Magic. And you talked about how we let people in to help us co-design. We even offered, when we had to change our name in the early days, we asked them to help us come up with the name, right? And so Monzo came from our customers. I always say the interesting thing is the second most common one of the 9,000 suggestions we received was my bank. And I think that really says something about how people felt that this bank had been created for and with them. And so to try to get that to scale, that degree of customer connection and that understanding of, you know me, you understand me, I trust you, and I feel that we have this relationship, is not super easy. The digital bit, like I said, is kind of like a tactic. It's the tool. But underlying that, you can slap a UI and a nice little app on any company, but unless like core to your DNA is that feeling of connection and understanding what user needs are and what customer needs are and building everything around that, it's just lipstick on a pig, right? So I think the key for us has always been to figure out, how do you systemize those magical moments and those connections in your company. So in a digital world, if that is the tool that you're using to connect, it's a mix of humans, but also nimble product development of putting out, products in the ether and co-creating them and iterating on them together, that kind of deep and always on user research. Empathetic, Audrey, you talked about thoughtful design, that feeling of, is your pay packet exploding, or the little, wiggling emoji in the corner that celebrates with you when you've reached your goal in a savings pot, marketing, servicing, it all has to come together to create those connections. And so that has to be in the DNA of your business, because customers smell fake and they can smell it from a mile away. So really it goes much beyond the digital. It really goes back to your company values and that customer first culture and how you hire and how you screen people when they come in the door. So that's actually the challenge of scale, is making sure that, it's very easy for that to get diluted. And how do you, for every single person you bring into your business, how do you make sure that DNA around customer connection is deep and they're not just about, deploying things to customers, but about solving real problems. And so that's really what we spent a lot of time on, to make sure that we could do that at scale.
Yeah. No, it's everything, isn't it? It's literally like, it's DNA is exactly the right term, I think, to use. That's an amazing anecdote about my bank. I'd never heard that before.
Another funny one that I only learned 3 months ago is that in the early days, we used to get a call spike at Christmas from our customers just calling to say thank you.
Wow.
For like being our bank. Like, wow, that's
Really?
an amazing heritage for a company. Yeah. So we'd have a volume spike and we'd have to staff, because we were getting all this inbound from customers saying thank you so much.
That's it. Who ever thinks about phoning their bank to say thank you, right? And at Christmas, when everybody's thinking about a million different things. But look, it does speak to that sort of sincere and authentic connection, as you quite rightly said, that you've built with your users. I expect if we could put, something out there that was easily replicable, that sort of people could lift and shift, I expect this would be like our most listened to episode of all time. Niro, I wanted to come back to you. Anyway, because we're talking about, how do you do this? How do you do this at scale? And who's got more scale in the UK market than NatWest, right? I'm interested in maybe some of your reflections on the sort of things that we discussed. Obviously, the Lemonade context, the Monzo context. What does that look like for NatWest?
I think at the start, we need to kind of focus internally in terms of our own internal ways of working, and to kind of Strata's point, what's that kind of magic that we need to kind of build internally so that we build the right products for our customers. So a few years ago, we shifted from being very much a product-led organization to one that is currently very much a customer journey-led organization. So we don't have product managers anymore. We've got customer journey managers and customer journey developers and customer goal leads. So those are the kind of roles that we've got in the bank now, and very much their focus is on the end-to-end holistic customer journey, both digital and non-digital. So how do we improve that journey for that customer? How do we go on that journey with them? How do we feel the same pain points that they're going through? How do we build the right solutions and the right propositions that aren't necessarily product-led? So that's one of the kind of first things that we did, and we've seen a huge amount of success by kind of moving on to that journey. Now, as we kind of mature as a customer journey-led organization, the next thing that we need to look at is how do we support our customers with their financial well-being through the data that we hold about our customers. How can we be more engaging with the customer around how they could improve their financial well-being just by sharing with them the knowledge and insights that we hold about them. So that's the next phase, and that's the next step that we're kind of building on.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, and it sounds like, I mean, again, it sounds like a real journey, but it sounds pretty all encompassing again, right? And that's the way that you have to the way that you have to do it. Niro, if I stick with you, I think one of the things we said in the intro that we were keen to cover off in this show is this idea of sort of like guidance and advice. And I suppose if we start to think back to some of the things we said about taking some of the stress and the anxiety and the hard work out of managing their financial services for people, I suppose we're going to start to move into the realm of helping them make product decisions, and maybe, the sort of best product decisions for them. How do you sort of, I suppose, approach that? How do you think about it, and how do you navigate that fine line between, from a regulatory perspective, of course, between offering guidance and advice?
Yeah. So the first place that we need to start is, as a bank, we try to be more human in the way we kind of communicate with our customers. I think that is probably the best place to start. The gray line between kind of guidance and advice is something that we face into every day, and how we tackle that is through a combination of things. One is we do train our kind of customer journey managers and customer journey developers in terms of where that fine line is and how far they can kind of push that line to make sure that we're doing the right things from a customer perspective. There is a slight contradiction here, especially with consumer duty and the need to deliver better customer outcomes. So how do you do that at the same time by not kind of moving into the advice space? So I think that's a challenge that we face into every day. Personalization throws a further challenge into this, because as you become more personalized, again, you could quite easily move into the advice space if you're not careful. So how do you become personalized, but do that in a way that you give options to customers, so customers can themselves make an informed choice based on the right options that we put in front of them. So those are things that we're working on, that we are trying to kind of help customers make more informed choices with. But that is definitely a challenge that we face into every single day.
Yeah, I think you set that out really well. And I think you described really well how much of a balancing act. It's really sort of, you are walking a fine line, right? You want to deliver impactful insights, I suppose, really to users, but you don't want to fall foul of any sort of regulatory position. I mean, Sujata, what's your view on this particular topic?
Yeah, I think advice is quite a high bar to be able to give advice, in the sense that I think of advice as, when you're offering a personal recommendation that is factoring in like every aspect of a customer's situation, and that's quite a high bar to set. So the way we focus on guidance, and that's much more about, that allows us to consider like a really wide range of scenarios that customers can identify with. It's important for them to identify their situation, and then you can talk about, okay, for folks in this situation, a common recommendation might be X, right? And they can sort of take their own path along that journey. I think guidance actually gets a bad rap, in the sense that it can sound like a weak thing, but it can be pretty powerful. I think the problem with guidance, actually, as it stands today, is that it's pretty dry and like conservative. So I don't want to read, a 20-page PDF or a document on investment strategies, but I will engage with like a short TikTok to learn about how to start investing. And so our goal really is to make guidance accessible, to revamp it, to make it relevant, to make it timely, and to make it consumable. And then the customer's choices to identify where they find themselves in that situation and what guidance they want to take. I think most people actually want guidance, not advice. They just need to be able to consume it, internalize it, and do that with relatively little cognitive load.
Yeah, and I guess in a format that they're comfortable with, in a format that they're used to consuming things in, which, you're right. I mean, TikTok's a great example. It definitely sort of pulls us more into like a sort of social media sphere in terms of how that gets delivered. Audrey, what do you think?
And that's how you build the muscle, right? That's how you help people empower themselves versus telling. It's helping them make great decisions, which is, really how what everyone should be aspiring to.
No, I completely agree. Audrey, what do you think? What's like the sort of insurance lens on this, I guess?
So I think it works a little bit different in insurance. For the most part, when you think about, I think from a regulator standpoint, we may run a little bit less of a risk. In the United States, obviously, there are really different risks with insuring a home in a different state. And so state regulators are going to have not just like guidance or advice, but they're going to have requirements of things that people need to have. And a lot of the time when customers come to us, they already have a lender for their car or their mortgage lender or a vet who has either told them what they need based on the contract that they have with our customer, or made recommendations on their own. So, we really only run into issues with this when we get into like our car insurance and telling them, we recommend this repair shop that we have partnered with. But for the most part, I think, a lot of what Zada said about really guiding people, I think we really try hard to make it really, really easy to understand everything that you need to know, make it easy to find the information that you need so that you're really in a position to make empowered choices, and really decide for yourself.
And not having to digest that 40-page PDF that we talked about, surfacing the relevant information that you need and all of that sort of stuff. Okay, look, great. So we always sort of finish on these insights show with a sort of round the room, what should we sort of take away? So Niro, again, maybe if I just come to you first on this one. What's the one big thing that companies should bear in mind when setting out to serve customers' needs more holistically? So if you were to sum up the last 40 minutes of conversation with one key takeaway.
One of the things I'd probably say, which we haven't actually spoken about in the last 45 minutes, is when you think about a customer's holistic financial well-being, we also need to be thinking about their networks. So their family relationships, their connections, how does that actually play into their financial well-being? And I don't think there's enough propositions out there in the market that support customers on that front. It's very much focused on their kind of immediate account balance and immediate saving needs and so on. But their relationship with their partner, their relationship with their families, how does networks play into all of this? And I think that's something we need to focus on.
Yeah, really nice. I love that because it's not just, here's a joint account and away you go. Like, what's the sort of like the Google suite of like collaborative working for financial services? Like, I love that. That's a great one. Audrey, what about you?
I mean, we're talking about holistic financial well-being. To me, it feels so personal. I think that it really comes down to listening to your customers, really understanding what their needs are, what their concerns are, what their aspirations are. And then you can really start to build the foundation of a holistic approach for them. And I think that when companies are prioritizing empathy in this kind of customer-centric approach, they're going to design products and experiences that really bring value and foster trust, which, allows us to be a bigger part of their lives and grow with them over time. And I just love that Lemonade does get to be part of somebody's well-being in this way, and being able to learn from our customers and make them feel protected and safe, especially when it comes to the things that they love most or that they've invested the most in. I think well-being is not a word that we think about all the time in fintech, but I think it's really, really important when it comes to, how we connect with our customers and what we're building for them.
I agree. I think if I were to take two words away from this, I think two of them would be sort of empathy and connection. I think that's come out quite strongly. So, really well said. I completely agree. And Sujata, what about you?
I think I just build on what both Audrey and Niro said. So I agree with customer centricity, and I'd say we should all be setting the bar higher to what you just said, Ross, which is customer connection. So make it a dialogue, build with and for your customers, break down your product silos, ground yourself in your customer's journey, and make sure that connection aspiration is like in the DNA of your company and your teams, because that's the how.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's a great way to end. So that does wrap up today's discussion. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find out more about you and your companies? I'm going to go reverse way around this time just because I'm getting comfortable picking on you, Niro, all the time. So, Sujata, what about you? Let's start with you this time.
In the App Store, download a Monzo bank account. In 10 minutes, you'll have your Monzo bank account. You can discover all the joys that it has to offer.
That is an expert plug. Congratulations. Audrey, how about you?
Lemonade.com. We're also in the App Store. And you can find us on Twitter, lemonade_Inc.
Excellent. Thank you. And Niro, how about you?
Since we're going with the App Store theme, I'll also go with the App Store, and I'll plug 3 of my brands, so NatWest, Royal Bank, and Ulster Bank, and you'll find them all in the App Store.
All right. And you can find me at Ross Gallagher 07 on Twitter. And you can find out more about 11FS as ever on 11fs.com. Thanks for listening. If you like what you've heard, follow our podcast and don't forget to leave us a review. It really does help us to make it better and it helps others to find the show. As always, if you want to join the conversation, find us on social media. Just search for 11FS or Fintech Insider or email podcast@11fs.com. Thanks very much and goodbye.